Welcome to another episode of the Trucking Risk and Insurance Podcast, where John Farquhar,
Hey,
whoops, the other way,
and Chris Harris, the other way. There we go. We're your
screw up
hosts.
and have some fun. That's all.
That's right. That's right.
Today,
Hey,
John and I,
Hey, before you
yeah,
get started, can I say something? Check out my new shirt. Check this out. This is just awesome. Like, I got this really cool shirt on with this big logo that says Trucking Risk and Insurance Podcast. You know what? This just makes me feel that much more important.
oh Lord. Hey,
Yep.
Johnny, we decided, it was a great suggestion, by the way. This was John's suggestion that we do a series of podcasts. So we've got some guests coming up, but in between, we're going to be throwing a series together, and we're going to be talking about truck driver files.
Yep.
Right?
Exactly. Yep. How important they are, what should be in there, what's required by law, and we'll even talk about what's a good practice. What should you have in there? And how you should keep these things in compliance, as well as some people kind of put way too much information in there that shouldn't be in a particular file, but we should get that in another file. So we're going to talk about how all this information should be collected, gathered, and compiled.
We're gonna be talking about truck driver files, the rules, the regs.
Yep.
And we're going to give you some tips and tricks on how to get things in there. So we'll do an episode, for example, on a road evaluation and what should be, all that kind of stuff. Hey, maybe I should pull my mic down.
There you go.
Just
I can hear you now.
It's Friday. Oh lordy, gotta love doing lives on Friday because
Yes.
Can I get rid of somehow I keep shrinking. 10 years. Why do we need 10 years on an application form, John?
Well, requirement by law, we want to kind of have an idea of, what was your history like over the last 10 years? Hey, maybe you worked at the same employer for 10 years. Awesome. But maybe you've worked at 20 different employers over the last 10 years. So it's kind of important that we get an idea of the structure of your background.
All right. And for some reason, again, even at your daughter's now, you are freezing.
It's just wild. I'm at a top secret location here in southwestern Ontario, so try and pick it out on the map.
So you got to have 10 years, and the FMCSA says you've got to do history investigation for 3 years, but if the person had a CDL going back, you may have to go back all the way to 10 if they had a commercial driver's license, CDL. I hate using those acronyms in case somebody doesn't understand them. All right, next one on the list. A signed drug test pre-employment statement. What the heck are they talking about, Johnny?
Well, if you're going to run to the U.S. here in this case, we have to be in compliance with the drug and alcohol regulations. So most drivers will have to do a pre-employment test. So the trick is we're signing off on that as a driver. We're giving the company permission to gather this information on our behalf and, hey, tell us where to go get our test done.
Yeah, and what drugs they're going to be testing for.
Correct. E.g. and alcohol as well. Yep.
I was just going to say e.g. Cannabis.
Yep. Cannabis. Cocaine, I believe. Methamphetamines.
Yeah, there's a whole list there. I can't say most of them.
No, I know. Some of them are quite about this long. So, but that'll all will be on that statement to tell you what they're being tested for. So there's usually no prescription medication, unless, of course, your prescription medication is a banned substance.
Well, yeah. Well, in a lot of them, it has happened. Let me see if I can put myself on here. It has happened. I don't know what's going on today, but it has happened that doctors prescribe things like what's that new oil, that cannabis products?
Oh, yeah, CBD oil. Yes.
Right. And they can have THC in them. if
Yep.
you're not
Yep.
careful, and which is banned
Correct.
for truck drivers.
Yep.
And hey,
Yep.
that could be troublesome.
Yeah, and you could be on a Tylenol that has a high codeine level, which
Oh
will
yes,
cause you to test positive. So these are things. So it's always a matter of, if you're going to get into prescription medication, make sure that your doctor knows that you are a cross-border truck driver and that you have to test randomly for banned substances, so that they make sure they don't give you something they shouldn't be.
yeah. So it's called communication. Talk to your doctor and
Correct.
let them know what it is that you
Exactly.
do.
Yep.
All
Well,
right.
and that's where that pre-employment statement is so important. Like, you should actually request a copy of that from the employer when you're signing it. To go, can I have a copy of that, so I make sure that I am aware of what these banned substances are. So when I have a conversation with my doctor and he goes, "Hey, we're going to put you on these new kind of medications and whatnot. Hey, does it qualify with this list here? Am I not going to make sure you're not going to get in trouble?"
Yeah, good idea. And I had not thought of that, so that's a great suggestion. Ask, get a photocopy of this document that
Yep.
you're signing, so that you can take
Exactly.
it to your doctor. Um,
Yep.
so next is controlled substance test results, and I put a little
Yep.
note here before being dispatched to the U.S. or entering the U.S.
Correct.
What are we talking about? Why?
This is where we got to have the results of that drug and alcohol testing. We need to make sure that we're, again, qualified. We're not under the influence or have any of these banned substances in our body before we go to the U.S. The U.S. says don't even think about it if you've got that in your system.
Yeah, you just got to make sure you're clear.
Hmm.
And I mean, the company dispatching you has to have negative test results on file
Correct.
before you
Yep.
enter the U.S. Um,
Right.
and then, hey, this thing here, 3 years of references.
Hmm.
Like,
So
what a
this
pain,
ties in. Yeah, this ties right in with your 10-year history, right? So what we want
right?
to do is we want to verify the first, or not the first, the most current 3 years of your work history. So this is where you would reach out to the previous employer and get some information to go, hey, how did he do? Any crashes, any violations, any issues? Would you rehire this person? Things along that line. So this is required for the 3-year period. Now, hopefully with any luck, hey, maybe you've only worked for one employer and it makes your new employer's job real easy because they just have to do one reference check. So, but if you've had 6 in the last 3 years, yeah, we might want to think about, do we want to hire this guy? Because is he even going to stay with us? So, but that's for
Well,
another
and
conversation.
well, and another conversation. How much does it cost to hire a driver? What's the cost
Yep.
of having that truck sit empty?
Yep.
Anyways, that is
Yep.
another conversation. Next on the list, let me talk about this one because
Yes,
I
please.
love
This is right up your alley.
initial driver abstract, and then the next one, if you're from Ontario or Alberta, I don't know if anybody else has a commercial driver's abstract, but certainly Ontario and Alberta do. And I say initial. Both of them should be
Mhm.
within 30 days of
Yep.
the driver applying. But
Yep.
in case you need to defend, if you ever get sued and this driver's
Hmm.
in a crash and you get sued for negligent hiring,
Hmm.
this is one of the hiring documents that you made your initial decision upon.
Yep.
So when you
Yep.
hired this driver, you said, "Hey, I think this is going to be a good fit for the company," and
Hmm.
you part of that decision is based on these documents that you have. So never, let me emphasize that again, never throw
Hmm.
out the originals. I know a lot of people
Right.
get driver abstracts every 90 days. Great, keep them for
Yep.
2 years and then toss
Yep.
those in the garbage, but not
Right.
the originals of
Right.
the abstracts. Anything that helps you make the hiring decision, keep it, keep
Hmm.
it, keep it, keep it.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
So, hey, that was 2 for 1. That
Hey, there
was
you go. Good deal.
okay. 3 year MVR or abstract, the date. Why
Yep.
am I concerned about the date?
Well, we want to make sure the date that we received it and the date that was on the document, because you'd made the comment, I don't want it any more than 30 days old, right? So this is something where we want to go, well, okay, when did we receive a copy of this? because a lot of times carriers are probably doing on the basis of the drivers providing you with a copy of these abstracts.
Right. And for MTO and I think DOT regulations.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I know Ontario, and I think the American regulation says that you have to have a driver abstract every 12 months, a current one.
Yep.
That's what they consider
Correct.
to be current within 12 months.
Correct.
And so you need to know the date of the abstract so that you can pull it on a regular basis. John and I would tell you every 90 days, but the law says once per year. Within 12 months, you have to have that on in there. So just thought we would cover that. The commercial driver abstract or the CVOR abstract for the driver, same deal there. Copy of the driver license. That would be next.
Yes. So very important. And one of the things I see, unfortunately, too many times is all we're doing is getting a copy of the front of the license. We need both sides to be in that file, front and back of the license. So, when you say copy of the license, that means both sides, people.
Good point. And that is what is required by law. I just question, John, what's on the backside of an Ontario driver's license nowadays? Is there any information?
There is. There's some barcode information there, but the big thing is there actually is some dates on the back of that driver's license.
Is there?
Yeah.
See, and that's.
And I don't have mine on me, or I'd even show it to you. So.
Well, I'm afraid to show it, just in case.
Well, we don't want to see your picture. but your picture would get out, and it probably looks like when you were in cell block A.
Well, yeah. Okay, now I'm wondering, where is my driver's license? Am I driving around without a copy of it?
Oh, actually, I don't even think you need it. You don't need a driver's license because you own a Tesla. It drives itself.
Yeah. So there is the barcode type information there.
Yep.
But I tried to keep it moving. But yeah, nothing else. Yep. Well, no, it does have.
Some dates
I can't read that. Well, it says class something, 9 class and 12 restrictions. Well, hopefully that's not me.
Yeah. So,
but a current copy of the driver's license is required. And of course, on my list here, I've put down things like expiry date because, again, you got to have a current copy of the driver's license.
Yeah. Well, and this is where it's perfect because instead of having to go to the picture, that copy of the driver's license that you've taken, why go looking for that? Put it like you've got it right there. What is the expiry date of that license? That's what's so easy. It's a quick lookup, because this page is going to be in the front of your driver qualification file, and I can have a quick look at it and go, oh, okay, no, he's still another year out before his license is going to expire. This is really good. So rather than having to go through each picture.
Well, and I'm just, as you're talking there, I'm just thinking, and maybe people can leave us a comment.
Comment, yes.
If this is of value to you, would it be of value for me to make an Excel spreadsheet? It would be very simple. An Excel spreadsheet for tracking things like when do I have to pull the abstracts? When does a driver's license expire? It would be a very simple thing, but I could do it up and give it away. If you think it's of value, people let us know. Or John can make it up. What the heck? Why am I?
Exactly. You know what? But hey, give us some feedback, because that's the whole key thing is give us some feedback. Give us some likes and tell us what you want to see. That's what this whole program's all about. So we can't build anything and give it away for free if you don't tell us what you want. So we're here to help.
Exactly. Okay, criminal record search. Kind of important only if you're a cross-border carrier, maybe.
Exactly.
Do Canadian-only carriers or regional carriers that stay within the province, do they pull criminal abstracts? Should they pull criminal abstracts?
In my mind, it is a best practice by all means. There are a number of customers that will require the motor carrier to do criminal checks on their drivers because of maybe the facility that they're going to go into while loading or unloading, or maybe the fact of the cargo type that they're hauling and stuff like that. So it's definitely a good practice by all means. It doesn't hurt. Now, to say, should you hire a driver that has a criminal background? Well, I guess it depends on what type of criminal activity they've been involved in. Not fair to penalize everybody for something that happened in their teenage years when they're now in their 40s and 50s and they've done very well. But there are certain things that, could stop you from crossing the border, could stop you from going into a particular customer facility. So always best to know, and then that way you can work with that driver, schedule that driver on specific runs that will make sure that they're successful on.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And I hadn't really thought of the customer aspect before, but yeah, I'm sure some customers want you to know, you being the trucking company, want you to know who it is that's coming into their facility. So, interesting. Written tests. There's some controversy, I think, over this one. Written tests.
Big time. Yeah. There used to be an awesome written test, and you'll probably remember this back in the day, because I know I completed it several times. And I believe it was almost 60 some odd questions long. It was put out by the FMCSA, and it was all based on the FMCSA regulations. So, and it was an awesome test. It had great information in it. Made you go get out the green and white book and look for the answers if you didn't know them already. And it was a good knowledge verification process, and I loved it. And then the USDOT, FMCSA took it away and said that no longer needs to be part of the qualification file. But Chris and I will both tell you, from a best practice approach, you need to have some knowledge verification in there. We need to verify that these guys know what some of the regulations are, what some of the rules are, even if it's simplistic approaches.
Yep. And secondarily, because if they go into the U.S., they've got to be able to read, write, speak the English language sufficiently to converse with them. Anyways, there's a regulation about being able to read and write. Well,
exactly.
Giving people a certain knowledge test would help verify that they have the skills to be able to read and write. So
and the trick with conducting that skill test is to make sure they do it in front of you or on your premises and whatnot. Not take it home and have their kids do it. Maybe their kids speak better English and whatnot, or their brother-in-law. Do it in front of you. That way you can verify. Obviously, through the interview process, you're going to find out, hey, you can speak pretty good English. This is good. Complete the application so that I can see that you can write and you can do this. By having the test done shows me that you can read and you can understand what the answers are that I'm looking for.
Okay. Let's get through the next 2 bullet points, and then we're not going to get into the last page. So the next, because there's a lot more on here that I think should be in the driver file, but annual reviews and a record of violation.
Yeah. Oh, did you want to do that road test one, or is that coming up after?
No, okay, we can do road test. So we got 3 to cover real quick. The road test, and I put down here 40 miles or 65K. Is that legit? Like, is that necessary? And we're back up to 2 viewers. Holy smokes, we're hitting records.
Yeah. Woohoo! Oh, good deal. There is no requirement by law that says how long your road evaluation needs to be, doing that road test. But it has to be of sufficient nature because you need to incorporate into that road test all the various risks and aspects that driver is going to do or touch on a daily basis. So, I encourage people, make sure you have left turns, right turns, stop lights, stop signs, railroad crossings.
That's the one I was going to say.
Off-ramp. Yep. So, there's anything that you're going to deal with in your travels should be part of this. If you're expecting a driver to travel at night, maybe he's going to run a dedicated run and travel at night. Well, then let's do the road test at night, So these things kind of come into play.
That's not convenient for me, John.
Well, I'm sorry, Chris, but you know what? If you're going to hire people, you got to be inconvenienced. We're in the trucking industry.
I'm in total agreement with you.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. So, and unfortunately, I love what you've got there. Minimum of required miles, because some people are like, yeah, let's go around the block. That's
Oh,
not going to do it. Like you need to spend an hour, 2 hours with this guy or this driver, because what you're trying to do is get them to drop their guard. Because I'll guarantee you, you take me out for a road test, I'm going to be on my best behavior. Actually, I'm going to be on my bestest behavior because I'm going to show you how good I am. But as an instructor, what I would be doing is trying to get him off guard, distract him, have conversation, I want to know a little bit more about you. We're in the cab together. This is a perfect opportunity. But at the same time, I'm trying to see if I can pull your focus off of the task of driving that vehicle, because that's going to help me to understand, do you have proper control or are you easily distracted?
all righty. Good points. Good points. Annual review, record of violation.
Mm-hmm.
And this
This
is
is a good
something,
one because, go ahead.
it's in the CVOR safety manual that
Yep.
MTO wants to see an annual review. And of course,
Yep.
if you cross border, the FMCSA says you've got to have a
It's a
certificate of
mandate.
violations, which
That's
is
right.
where the driver declares to the carrier what the violations were for the last 12 months. And then
Yep.
the annual
Yep.
review is where the carrier reviews everything and says, yep,
Mm-hmm.
this driver is still
Yeah.
qualified to work here. So,
Yeah. This is what's perfect when you're pulling your driver abstracts. This, you make this part of that review process.
right.
I've actually met a couple of carriers who have actually taken the annual review and made it a semi-annual review. They pull their abstracts quarterly, but every 6 months they do this review, because they said, we don't want to wait 12 months. We want to make sure all our drivers are on board. We got good drivers and whatnot. And they found it helps actually with engagement with the driver, and go, opportunity kind of go, wow, good job. You guys are doing great. You know what? I'm very, very happy with your performance. And, you can turn it into a performance review if you want. So, but yeah, it just kind of adds a little more fun.
Does does this annual review, this piece of paper, does it have to be
Yep.
conducted in front of the driver? Like, does it have to be person to person by law?
That would be best practice. Yeah,
Yes. Okay.
it would be best practice by all means, but I don't believe there's a requirement you have to be sitting across from that person.
Right.
You
I
could
just
even hand that to their manager and say, hey, when you're meeting with your drivers, can you kind of go through this? Because there is on that form there, well, and we'll get into that in the series, but in that form there is a spot for the driver to complete some information and sign off, and
yeah.
then for the company representative to sign off. So if you can do it face to face, I think that's way better. It helps the driver understand why you're looking at this information.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. And the last thing, this is controversial: the receipt of the FMCSR driver handbook. So you had
Hmm.
mentioned your green and white book,
Yep, the green
right?
and white book. Yep, yep,
And again, I'm asking for comments out there,
yep, yep.
everybody. Is it the law that you must give this green and white book to every driver who crosses the border?
I don't want to answer that. I want to see if we get people to comment. I want to see what the comments are. And then so what we'll do is we'll provide that answer to that when we get to that in our series. So, but right
Well,
now, yeah, we want to hear comment.
I'm not even sure we can provide it, because I'd like to know. I know there's a lot of
Yep.
companies that spend $10 to $15 a book and give it to
Oh
every
yeah.
driver,
Yep. Yep.
because
Yep.
they
Yep.
believe it's part of the regulations.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I'm asking for help, quite honestly. If it is part of the regulations, let me know what the reg is. Um,
I know the answer.
do you? Okay.
I know the answer, but I'm not going to tell them.
Okay.
Our listeners have to chime in. Our listeners have to chime in and tell us what they think the answer is, or what they know the answer to be. That would be
Okay.
even better. So, yeah.
That's perfect. Why don't we
Yep.
put a time limit on this, John?
Yeah.
How long do you want to withhold the answer? And then you can put it you can make a comment. I can pin the comment at the top so that
Yep.
it's there. But
Yep.
what, a week, a month? How long do you want before
Uh,
you post the answer?
let's let Let's give it no more than a month, because I know
Okay.
there's some people that have got their hands full and may not be able to get to this video within the week. But let's give it a month max, and then by that time we'll probably be into the series, and we'll touch into that by all means.
Hey, perfect. And
Yeah.
this was April Fool's, Johnny. So there, hey, happy
Oh,
April
hey,
Fool's
hey.
Day.
Well, that's why the computer's messing up on you, Chris.
Somebody
It's
got
it's
into
April
it.
Fool's Day. Yeah, somebody got into your computer. Yes, exactly.
Uh,
So
but perfect. So
cool. Perfect.
join us
Good.
again. We will be doing a series, as John and I have said,
Yep.
on
Yep.
driver files as we delve deeper into the different components. For
Yep.
instance,
Yep.
errors on a truck driver application form,
Yep.
errors that you
Yep.
complete on a road
Hmm.
test, errors. We didn't even talk about things like PSP reports and
Yep.
the drug testing and how easy it is to get the drug testing
Yeah.
results from everybody, and
Exactly.
past history check.
Exactly.
Anyways,
Yep.
of course, I'm being
Uh,
facetious there. But
No.
so stay tuned. John and I are going to be
Yep.
doing a series. This was the first one. And
Yep.
thanks for tuning in to the Trucking, Risk, and Insurance podcast, where guess what? We talk about trucking, risk, and insurance. Heck of a nice shirt,
Yep.
Johnny.
I
I got to get
know,
me
eh?
one.
Here, let's do a close up. This would be really cool. Here, get that going right. Whoop, look at that trucking
Look
risk
at
and insurance
that.
podcast. Yeah. So there you go. And hey, just to let everybody know, if you're in Canada and particularly in Ontario, Chris and I are going to be at Truck World here in April. We're going to be doing a live broadcast, I believe, or we might record it, one of the two. But hey, we're hoping to maybe
Probably
see you
both.
guys. Yeah, we don't have a booth, but we are going to be pilfering on some other people and traveling around, seeing the show, and we're hoping to get together. So keep an eye out for this shirt because Chris and I will be both wearing our shirts and our new hats.
Well,
So we'll
and
be in uniform.
let's give a shout out to our friend Bruce Outridge, Lead Pedal
Yes,
Radio, Lead Pedal
podcast. Yep,
Podcast, because
yes,
it'll be
yep,
his equipment that Bruce
yep,
is kind enough to say, hey,
yep,
why don't you guys do a live from my equipment? I've got my equipment all set
yep,
up there. And
yep.
so John and I
Sure.
on the Saturday will be doing,
Sorry. Yep.
what are we doing? A 1 hour or a 2 hour live?
I don't know. We'll do something. We're not sure what we're going to do, but we're going to do something anyway. But so I believe you're going to be there on the Friday or the
Thursday and
Thursday and the
Friday, yep.
Friday. Yeah, so
So
I can't make it the Thursday and Friday, but I'll be there on the Saturday. So so if you're there either one of those days, make sure you look for Chris, and on Saturday, look for both of us.
yeah, and I'll do a live on Thursday and Friday because Bruce has been kind enough to say, "Come on over, do a live."
Yep,
So it won't
exactly.
be no
Why
two
not?
hours, let me tell you, but
Yep.
it should be some fun. All
It
right,
will be. It will be.
that's it
Cool.
for this week, Johnny. Thanks so much, buddy. We'll
Hey,
have a great
anytime.
weekend.
You too. Have a great weekend. And everybody out there, make sure you like, subscribe. And if you don't like this show, hit the dislike button twice.
There we go. Thanks so much. All right, there you have it. Another episode of the Trucking Risk and Insurance Podcast. And all the technical difficulties, I apologize for that. However, if you would like a copy of that driver file checklist, it is in the show notes down below. All right, so get your copy of the driver file checklist. It's in the show notes down below.